The Mavericks won a game, folks. The Mavericks won a game. They might even get into the play-in tournament. Welcome into Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. We'll talk a little bit about the play-in scenarios at the end of the video, but it's getting interesting in Mavericks land, folks. Mark Cuban sounding like Jerry Jones, just sounding off yesterday, ranting about the failure of a season the Mavs are having, Luka, Kyrie, the Brunson debacle. I mean, my goodness, things are heating up. And this is why you subscribe to the channel, because the offseason is about to be epic. This is pretty rare territory for Cuban, I would say. Some would say he's in shambles at how things have gone. So subscribe. We're going to cover it all. Don't miss a beat. Latest news and rumors coming at you here on this channel. First up, Kyrie Irving talk from Mark Cuban, as if you missed it, Cuban, like we're saying, went on a rant yesterday. Here's what he had to say about Kyrie. He said, I'd love to have him stay for sure. I'd love to have him. I want him to stay for sure, and I think we have a good shot. I think he's happy here. He tells me he's happy here, and I get along great with him. I think he's a good guy. All I can tell you is everything I thought I knew about Kyrie because of everything I read was 100% wrong. And look, this goes to more evidence, I would say, that Kyrie and the Mavs are in a good place in terms of having a long-term relationship. Now, Kyrie's a wild card. Who knows what's going to happen? Like, things have not gone to plan in terms of winning and losing, so Kyrie could change his mind. I mean, a report says that while he's most likely to stay in Dallas, he's going to hit free agency. Like, he's going to let free agency dictate things. So I think he's at least open to the idea of signing elsewhere. We won't know until June. But, yeah, I think all in all, things, at least in terms of a relationship standpoint between Kyrie and the Mavs, have gone pretty darn well up to this point. More on Cuban here, or from Cuban here. He says if he can be outbid for Kyrie. He said, I don't know. I guess there's always too high of a price depending. But now with the new CBA, it's a different world. That's not the point. If you can't improve your team, you got to be able to improve your team. You have paid attention that there's a new CBA coming, right? And you've read some of the things that have been reported about team building and those types of things, right? Sounds like he's already planting the seed of, well, you know, if Kyrie leaves, that's the new CBA. I mean, what do you want from me? Look, let's be honest. And Cuban kind of admitted this. I'm not sure if we're getting to this quote or not, but the roster construction just hasn't been good, and he kind of took ownership for that. I obviously think once you traded for Kyrie, assuming the few months for the end of the season, which we're almost at the end now, didn't go disastrously in terms of like his fit from a personality standpoint, to me, like, you should be committed to re-signing him. Like, you should find a way to bring him back here. I'll be honest, I don't know of that many teams that are going to break the bank for a 4-year max deal for Kyrie Irving, so I think the Mavs are in a good position to give him a big deal. Will they do it? Who knows? I mean, they've been unpredictable and unsuccessful in a lot of regards when it comes to free agency, but, you know, I think at this point you should try to bring Kyrie back. Like, that should be the goal. And then beyond that, you try to tinker with the rest of the roster, whatever that looks like, whether they keep this top 10 pick, whether they don't. We've obviously talked about that a lot as well. But I think keeping Kyrie is something that should try to be achieved. Will Kyrie be a Maverick next season? This will be the pinned comment on today's video. Type Y for yes, type in for no. If you get hit with that YouTube bad break, reply to the pinned comment, yes, no, let me know down there. All right, let's talk about Luka Doncic. Is Luka going to be a Mav long-term? And Cuban admitted we have to earn the right of Luka staying in Dallas in his entire career. Obviously, you know, for years and years, we wondered the same thing with Dirk, and obviously he was loyal and has stayed, but we've also mentioned that I don't necessarily think Luka is going to be that loyal to a fault, which it almost felt like it was going to be that way for Dirk before he finally reached the mountaintop. Here's Mark Cuban on Luka. Look, players don't talk like that, just like, hey, I'm here for the next 17 years. He'd like to be here the whole time, but we've got to earn that. And I think that's probably a good way of putting it. I think Luka likes being in Dallas. I think he likes being the face of this franchise, but, you know, he's what is this, year 5, Coop? You know, if year 7 goes by, if year 8 goes by, and it's, you know, this is not a team that's contending year in and year out like they haven't this year, then, you know, at some point he will probably want to explore a different opportunity. Like, he is so competitive Like, he wants to win championships. Like, he doesn't want to be a guy that gets one chance at a title or something like that. Like, he wants to be in the mix every single year. You know, how do the Mavs earn Luka's loyalty? I don't know. I don't know how they do that. How about you don't let Jalen Brunson go? How about you figure out how to do that? Here's Cuban on how they can earn his loyalty. He said win championships. It's amazing how that cures all. I mean, before Giannis won, everyone was like, where he's going? Where is he going? He's not staying. He's not staying. Jokic, while they haven't won, da-da-da-da-da. Dirk before the Mavs won in 2010, 2011, right? There's no great player, no superstar where they don't question what are you going to do if you haven't won yet. And while I think he made good points, again, Dirk was so unique. Like, I don't think many are built like that. Honestly, had Giannis not won the title the year they did, he might not be there anymore. I think that's a very realistic possibility. Now, I think he's probably there for at least another 5, 6, 7 years, if not the rest of his career. Jokic, we'll see how that goes, but not many are built like that. Like, people want to go win championships, and Luka Doncic, again, his competitive spirit is near the top of the list when it comes to current NBA players. Now, Mark Cuban's biggest battle is the kind of franchise structure is always a bit out of whack, and this is kind of why we mentioned the Jerry Jones comparison. Jerry Jones is the owner and the GM. Cuban will never let the basketball ops people be the basketball ops people. It happened with Donnie Nelson. It's happening with Nico. Like, Cuban always has a say. Now, I think Cuban delegates more than Jerry does, but he's always involved. He's always a little bit involved. Now, I'll be honest, like, we're 18 months into this Nico thing. Like, I don't know if he's good at all, to be honest with you. But if you have a GM, let him be the GM. That's kind of the point we're trying to make here on Dallas Mavericks Today. And up to this point, the roster just isn't good. I mean, like, you have, let's say you bring back Kyrie, right? The only guys I want for sure long-term are Kyrie, Luka, and maybe Jaden Hardy, maybe Josh Green. You know, like, the rest of this team, I'm just kind of like, I don't really care for any of those guys. Like, I don't think they're championship-winning pieces. So you've got a long way to go to get that nucleus where you want it to be. Will Mark Cuban be able to keep Luka for his entire career? Type 1 for yes, type 0 for no. I'll just type 0 for no, because logically you'll think he'll leave at some point. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully he's here for the next 15 years and plays a 20-year career in Dallas just like Dirk Nowitzki did. Now to the good stuff. Jalen Brunson. I mean, it's like, I feel like this story is like, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of a drunk story in college that your buddy tells you, and then, like, the next time it's told, there's a new detail, and then the time after that, there's another detail, and it's like, okay, the original story was funny enough. Like, we don't need to keep adding new things to it. That's kind of like how I feel about this Brunson thing. It's like, what's even true at this point? I have no idea. Here's what Cuban had to say from his side of things. He said, where it went south was when Rick took over, talking about Rick Brunson, obviously Jalen's dad, who's on the Knicks staff now. He said when the parent took over, or parents took over. Cuban was so desperate to get his side of the story out there, the guy pulled out receipts, text messages from last February that showed concern about the Mavs losing Brunson to the Knicks. Here's the thing, Mark. You could have had Brunson extended before the season even started, but he claims, no, that's not how it went. It's just out of control. Now, Cuban also said Brunson was not interested in the 4-year, $56 million extension. Here's where I think he's bending the timeline to help him out. I think Brunson was probably not interested in it by the time they got to the trade line because he's having this breakout great year. I think you could have got him at that price tag before the season, but see how Cuban kind of works the timeline to his favor? Yeah, Jalen, we got these texts. He wasn't interested in that deal. Yeah, but that was now. What about in August, in July, when you could have extended him? We're not talking about that timetable. Here's more from Mark Cuban. We didn't know what the bid was. They never, on free agency, they never gave us a number. Knowing the numbers now would have paid it to him in a heartbeat, but he wouldn't have come anywhere. There's just no possible way that it was about money. I mean, there was no negotiation. They didn't give us a number. I mean, you would think that you're the incumbent team and you can match anything. That's the way it works, right? You have a relationship with the agent and they want to at least give you a chance because you helped develop the player. You had him for 4 years. Okay, let's work together. It just kind of sounds like a sore loser to me. Like, dude, just admit you screwed the pooch, man. Like, you weren't. And look, to be honest, if Cuban would come out and say, yeah, we could have had him at 4 for 56 after his third year, we weren't sold on him. He was not able to play in that playoff series against the Clippers. We had concerns. At least you're just admitting you ended up being wrong, right? Well, now he's like bending the timeline and, he was never going to stay in Dallas. I just don't think that's the case. Like, at this point, just own your mistake, move on. Brunson's moved on. I mean, hell, he was asked about it the other day if he's surprised that the Mavs season's going. He said, yeah, I'm surprised, but I don't really have a comment on it. Like, that's it, right? Like, he's a Knick now. Like, the Mavs got to figure out what their next move is. Like, just move on from it. But you're pulling out texts to, like, it's just bad, man. Like, that's one word. That is desperation to try and bend the story in your favor, and there's just no way you can do that. I mean, he is an absolute shambles in terms of how this season has gone. Now, who would you rather have? Type KI or for Kyrie Irving, JB for Jalen Brunson? I mean, I think Kyrie's the better player, but let's be honest. If you re-sign Brunson, you just have more flexibility. Guess what? You still have Dorian Finney-Smith. Guess what? You still have the draft pick you traded for Kyrie. Hell, Coop and I talked about this. Coop, who usually produces this show, that maybe the Mavs could have been in on the KD sweepstakes had they just had Brunson initially, because you'd have more ammunition. But it's just a mess. KI for Irving, JB for Brunson. All right, let's get positive. Hey, the Mavs won a game. They might sneak into the play-in. Listen, it's a very real possibility. I will say this. Last night was probably one of the best wins of the season for Dallas, which isn't saying a ton, but, back against the wall, red-hot Sacramento comes to town. You kind of take care of them for 4 quarters for the most part. Here are the scenarios with 2 games to go. If the Mavs win their last 2 against Chicago and San Antonio, and OKC splits their last 2, they will make it. If the Mavs go 1-1, then OKC has to win their final 2 games. And look, like, schedule-wise, the Mavs are in favor. They got Chicago and San Antonio at home. OKC has Utah and Memphis at home. Now, what could even things out a bit is Utah could mail it in now. Are they eliminated yet? They're 2 games back, but they have to win out, and they basically need the Mavs and Thunder to lose out. So we'll see it if Utah goes full throttle there. Memphis may not play their guys that last game. They could easily rest their guys. But Chicago's probably going to rest their guys, and San Antonio stinks. Like, you would think you'd win that game at home. It's going to be hilarious when the Mavs are a win-and-get-in scenario against the Spurs, who are horrid, and then Popovich just pulls off a Popovich, right, where he just out-schemes Jason Kidd, and they win like 98-96 at the AAC. Would anybody be surprised by that? And look, I'm on the record, like, I think keeping the top 10 pick is the better solution here, because I still just don't think this team can go on a run. I understand for those who want to get in. If they do get in, I'm going to want them to win at that point, because they're likely not going to get into the top 4 lottery in that scenario. But it's just, I'm in the camp of this season just needs to end. But honestly, I think they might sneak into this thing. Will the Mavs make the play-in? Type P for play-in or C for Cancun. I think Luka in Cancun for a month sounds great. Reset the body. Have some fun with your girl, and have a couple of, what are those drinks? Mojitos. Thank you, producer, for that one. Get Boban and the boys down there. Get the other Eastern Europeans down there, and let's make this thing happen. P for play and C for Cancun. Beach sounds pretty good this time of year.